Okay, great. We are live now. So thank you all so much for joining us at our Logic Apps Live webcast. We're excited today. We have a new face.
Indeed.
Indeed. Why don't you? Well, we can start. Yeah, and then old face. Go ahead, John. You can introduce yourself and tell them who you are, why you're here.
Yeah, I'm John Fancy. I joined Microsoft and this group a few months ago. Recently, just moved to Redmond about like a few weeks ago. So I'm working around the integration strategy of the team and what we're doing, the direction we're taking. Prior to that, some of you may know me because I was an MVP for 10 years in the Microsoft integration space. So it's great to be on the inside working on this stuff now.
Yeah, we're excited to have John on our team, and we said, hey, now you're on the team. We've got to add some class to our webcast, so you might as well show up and class it up a bit.
And we're still hiring, so if you're interested in joining us, then reach out.
That's right. You can see, yeah, we do. Honestly, we are hiring, and you can always tweet us and let us know if you're interested in joining our team. It is fun. It's so fun, in fact, that we were going to try to do something for Halloween, which is on what, Saturday, Sunday. So I was hoping that Kevin was going to show up dressed as the Grim Reaper or something, but he thought maybe people would get the wrong idea if they opened up the webcast and saw that. So
I'm scary looking enough.
That's right. Okay, and we are doing questions, by the way. So we're going to get started now. We do have a question. So if you're watching this on YouTube right now, you'll see at the bottom there's a little link that says join the Hangout Live or something, and it will take you to the Hangout, and you can open up the question and answer pane. That's probably the easiest way to ask questions. And we already have one question, which is, what is this? Which is a great question. And this is our Logic Apps Live webcast for the Azure Logic Apps team. And the purpose of this call and this webcast, I guess it's not a call, is to share with you some new announcements, go over some new features that we've done, highlight some stuff from the community, as well as just keep you up to date on what's going on. So feel free to ask questions. We'll answer them at the end. And we'll go ahead and get into it. So to start with, let's see, we'll start with some community stuff. So it has been a really big month for the community. For those of you who are familiar, there is a group called the Integration Group. Is it just integrationgroup.com? Should I look? Integration User Group. Yeah. Thank you. Integration User Group. They've done a bunch of stuff in the last month around Logic Apps and integration with Azure. There's been like 2 or 3 sessions. Nick gave one. There was one on like the C# scripting and being able to do C# in Logic Apps. So if you're looking for some good stuff to look into, I'd encourage you to look for the Integration User Group, and you can view the recordings after the fact. That's definitely one worth highlighting. Also, if you go to our Twitter feed at Logic Apps IO, I've been retweeting a few different blog posts. There was actually a cool one yesterday. I haven't even had the chance to post yet. But I noticed, I was just monitoring our Twitter feed, and I saw someone and they posted something like, and this is why, or something, and they're like, I hate Scott in the cloud, hashtag Logic Apps or something. And I was like, wow, that's a pretty negative tweet to show up. And then right afterwards, it said, I love Scott in the cloud, hashtag Logic Apps. And what I realized is what they had done is that they had created a Logic app that used Twitter as the trigger. And in Twitter, you can do search parameters, right? And they have some advanced stuff. And one of the things that Twitter search lets you do is do sentiment analysis. So you can create a Logic app that says trigger on a tweet where the sentiment is positive, or trigger on a tweet where the sentiment is negative. So they were demoing a Logic app where you could monitor a Twitter feed and do different steps, whether or not it was positive or negative. And so different Logic apps would trigger whether or not it was negative or positive. So I wanted to set something up similar, but I didn't want anyone posting anything negative. But I did. I really did. I threw up a Logic app about 10 minutes ago. So now if anyone goes and posts at Logic Apps IO or with hashtag Logic Apps, it's going to fire off a Logic app that will actually send a notification to my phone through Pushbullet, which is a free service that lets you send notifications. So I've already been getting one. Like I noticed that Wagner tweeted, and he said he's ready for one more community call and more after that. And we also had someone else who tweeted that they've got their popcorn, their Big Gulp, and their Milk Duds, and they're ready for the Logic Apps webcast. That was Probert Daniel. So that's just a cool thing where it's like, honestly, Logic Apps lets you throw together those really quick things where you've got to integrate with different services. In this case, I've got Twitter, which is pushing to my phone through Pushbullet, which I'll be able to do in just 5 minutes. So I just thought that was another cool little highlight. And then Kevin has some more as we get to GitHub. There have been some additions to GitHub. But let's go ahead and get started with the demo. So there is one feature that I want to demo quickly right now. and it is the split on feature. And this is actually a really useful feature. It's nice because I was working on the forums this week, and there was a user who was running into the exact scenario that split in makes this useful for. So I was actually able to just help him and say, hey, by the way, we actually have this new feature. You should check it out. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Make sure everyone can see that. Okay. It looks like my browser window's timed out. So let's go ahead and reload this. And I want to show you an example of how split on works. So right now, if you have a trigger, it said, the camera is off because I'm presenting my screen. Okay, it scared me. I saw the light turn off. Okay, so right now, if you have a trigger that has a batch output, so a good example of this is the SQL trigger. Let me go ahead and edit this. If you have a trigger that gives you a batch output like SQL, you see here, if you can see in my screen, SQL is going to output an array of results, right? It's got this whole batch of results that you have to process. So in this case, I have a SQL trigger that's returning a batch of all of the customers who have not yet been processed, okay? Now, the trick with that is if you're working with a batch in your logic app and you have a few different steps and you want to do something for each item in that batch, right now, you can use this repeat function to repeat over all the items, which is okay. So you see here right now, for this instance, I want to repeat over all of the items and I want to send a text message to their phone number. So I had to set up this repeat and I had to set the phone number as the repeat item.phone. And that's okay. But where this gets tricky is, let's say you have 3 or 4 steps. Maybe you're taking every item in your output and you're passing it through some kind of mapper that adds on some parameters. And then in the next step, you want to send a text. And then in the next step, you want to do something else. Where this gets tricky is where you're repeating over all of these things. What happens if you want to reference the output of a second? Whoa, excuse me, I need a drink. If you want to reference the output of another step with the output of something else, and because you're working with all these arrays and all these batches, it gets really messy. You have to end up using this function called range, where you're kind of iterating over a list, and it gets kind of tricky. So we wanted to make that simpler for you to work with batches if you really just want to work with each item individually. So there's this syntax called split on, which will split the batch and throw each individual item through the workflow separately. There's a workaround people have been doing right now where, honestly, the first step in their logic app, they go and spin up a bunch of other logic apps for each item. We don't want you to have to do that. So now you can just have the logic app say, hey, I'm working with the batch, just treat each item individually and process it individually. So let me show you how that works. Right now, we actually have an issue with our code view that we're fixing. So I'm going to show you another tool. I'll take this as an opportunity to show you, which is resources.azure.com. This is a really good tool for a lot of reasons. But resources.azure.com lets you browse the resource definition of all the resources in your Azure subscription. So I actually came in here, and for my subscription, I went into the resource group. I can open up all my logic apps, and I can see the resource definition for all these logic apps, which is the exact same as code view. The nice part is you can see the resource definition scripts for like your API apps and other things too. So I'm actually just going to edit the code view right here, since our code view is having some issues this morning that we're fixing. So I can go ahead and say edit, and let me show you how this new syntax works. And hopefully this is visible enough on the screen, but if not, we'll be posting some documentation. So here's my trigger, which is that SQL connector, as I was saying. And right here, in addition, so you have like your inputs and your conditions, I'm just going to add this new thing, which is called split on. And for the argument, I'm going to tell it where the batch is, where the array is that I want it to split on. So for this, it's triggers.outputs.body.rows, right? That is the array that SQL is generating with all of my results. So now once I do that, instead of passing in this array into my logic app, it's going to pass in each individual object, which means for this, I no longer have to do a repeat in my Twilio action. So I can go ahead and delete that. And now I can send a message. Instead of have to do repeat item, I can just say triggers.outputs.body.phone. Let me make sure I interpolate this string so it doesn't throw any fit at us. Great. So now I'm working with each item individually, and it's going to throw each item in individually. Let me make sure that works. Yep. So now I can go ahead and put this back into my resource group, which is going to put that. Oh, I didn't go into read-write mode. Let's see if it's going to make me do this all over again. Let me make sure it actually put in that split on. Yep. So now I have split on in there, which is valid. So now if I open up this SQL database, and I come in here and I change this variable, which is the variable it does to track all these states, to 0. You see I have all these customers that I want it to reference as a batch. If I switch all of these to 0, oh, not that one, that's an error. Perfect. So now when my logic app runs, if we wait 15 seconds, you'll notice my logic app's going to run. I'm actually starting to get text right now, so I can tell that it's running right now. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of text because my phone number is there. So you see here, let's click to refresh this. It's actually split up. So for each of those things, you can see it started its own individual workflow. And for each of those individual workflows, it's passed in as the input, that own item for there. So now I've split up that batch so that I can work with it easier, which is perfect. So that's a nice little syntax. I will make this note though. So right now you can use this. Probably the best way to use this is within this Resource Explorer, which is resources.azure.com. Right now there is an issue where if you open up the designer yet is having some fits with split on. And so if you add split on, open up the designer and then save it, it might have ripped out your split on argument in the trigger. So just be aware of that. Maybe just use code view for right now. We will get that fixed and resolved so that it will work once you open the designer. But that is how that works. So you see I was able to just split on triggers. I'll just add this really quickly and then we can go on to Kevin. The other place that this is really nice as we start to work with webhooks is that there are services like SendGrid. And I guess I can keep sharing my screen. There are services like SendGrid, and SendGrid allow you to subscribe to webhooks. So with SendGrid, if you use SendGrid as a service, then you can say, I want to subscribe to a webhook for whenever a mail message gets delivered or whenever there's a routing error or whatever. And SendGrid will actually push an array or a batch of events to a webhook. So now with this split on, you could create a logic app that will receive that webhook, and then you could split on it to treat each individual record separately. So there's nice things with webhooks too once you're able to split on that make it really useful. So that is it for the demo.
So one little tidbit, in case you didn't know some secret corners of the portal. If you go to the Azure portal, there is actually, if you go to Browse, you can go to the Resource Explorer, and you can get the same view that is shown here. It's just not editable. But it does allow you to browse and actually click on it, on the item, and then jump directly to the resource.
That's right. So yeah, on this screen, so if you come here, if I knew how the alphabet worked, Resource Explorer, which does let you explore your resources as well. Yeah, so it's the same as that other one, right? You can't do the put. And just as a call out, let's see, D. Dobrik did tweet just testing the Logic App Twitter trigger, which did notify my phone. So yes, this really is working. So thank you, D. Dobrik. Everyone should go and follow them right now for playing along and participating in our live webcast. Okay, so that's it for that. And if you have questions, remember to either tweet them, because I'll get them here, or ask right in that Hangout. But we'll actually switch now to this part for you, Kevin.
All right. So what's happening with Logic Apps? The first thing that we wanted to share was that we have new connectors in GitHub. Jeff had alluded to this earlier. The first one is the Power BI API that allows you to push data into Power BI, so you can bypass all the other channels if you want to get that data directly into Power BI. The MS Health API will help you find out if you're having a heart attack.
That's right.
Or
how much Halloween candy you've been eating?
Right. But it will check the data from your watch, for example, your band, and give you information like you can set goals and say, hey, I've surpassed some goal, and actually tweet that goal from your band, so you can start creating logic apps for some more interesting scenarios. And then finally, there's the new machine learning batch execution API, which will allow you to trigger off a machine learning batch, will then actually process that batch from a blob store, and you can get some results out of machine learning. That's from the machine learning team, and so it's an exciting set of new APIs that we have in GitHub.
That's right, and we didn't mention it here actually. I'll probably post this after, but the GitHub repository is github.com/logicappsio. So if you want to see those examples
and in case you forget, we actually added a link to the quick start tile.
That's true.
And that's that second item in the UI improvement, so that you don't have to remember that. So you just
look at this. Did you plan that?
I did not plan that.
Wow. Yeah. That was good.
And then at the last webcast, we announced that we supported Move. Now we actually have a Move button in the Logic Apps Designer, so you can actually move your Logic Apps across resource groups and subscriptions. And finally, we have some language improvements. A big one is native binary data handling. So we have a set of new functions that actually help you manage binary data inside of your Logic app. So we can decode a base64 encoded string. We can encode and decode URI components, so you can pass those along in URI string. And the last one is decode data URI, which will actually interpret what the data URI scheme is and properly handle if it's text. We can handle as text, and if it's not text and binary, we will treat it as binary. So then you can start passing those extra data types around and not get it mangled by the Logic app. And of course, the big one that we just went on is the ability to do a splitter scenario, so you can debatch your incoming messages using the split on that extends the trigger action. So now you can actually support a lot of these scenarios. And one of the great things about using split on instead of repeat is that you don't have state building up in a single Logic app. You actually get to have all these different instances of Logic apps running, which is probably a lot easier to manage. You don't have to wait for those things to complete to see the results of it. And as always, we have some stuff in progress. We did announce last week that we were working on webhooks, last time, and we're still working on webhooks. It's very important to us, but it's we want to make sure we get it right. So there's we are still working on manual trigger type with schema validation so that you can actually get webhooks kicking off new Logic apps. And then static endpoint, webhook action, manual action. The webhook action will reach out to a webhook and then get a response from that endpoint. And the manual action will actually allow you to wait on a create a webhook on the fly in the middle of your Logic app. You pass that endpoint to some system, for example, through a queue. They can actually correlate that request back to that instance and continue that Logic app based on that manual action.
That's right. So you could have, with this new action, you could have a Logic app that does ABC, sends off an email to someone and says, hey, before I can do DEF, I need you to approve. And when they click approve, that would send off a little webhook to your webhook, and that would resume your Logic app.
That's right.
That's awesome. I think that's a really cool scenario.
And then finally, message tracking. We want to make sure that we have correlated actions across runs. That's it. Even though we announced these things that we know are in progress, if you notice the other items I didn't announce that were in progress, but we did anyway. So there's, we try to be as transparent as possible, but sometimes things come up where we just need those functions or people scream loud enough, and we add those capabilities through the next set of sprints. So we are very flexible and trying to get that to happen. So if you have a favorite feature that you want, go forward for it, or if you have a new idea for what you want support in Logic apps, please go to our feedback form and add it to our user list.
Perfect. Awesome. And I got another alert, Wagner, W. Silveira, NZ, I want to make sure I'm doing that, did just tweet at Logic Apps, and he said, the new split-on functionality looks like BizTalk Services debatching functionality. So again, another tweet. We are cooperating and working together. All right, so this should show our camera again, and let's see if we have any questions. So we do have one question. We'll go ahead and answer this one first. So it says, here we go. After splitting, can you still use repeat on each individual record? This would enable the nested arrays scenarios. Yeah, so you could still use repeat, which is nice. It actually frees you up, because before, if you were working with batches, what you could do with repeat was kind of limited because you knew you had the batch. And so now you can still use that repeat functionality, but repeat over other things that are more valuable, like nested arrays or like other things you might want to repeat. For instance, maybe if I wanted to send 6 text messages for every single record in my SQL database, now I could repeat over the list of things I need to send text to, right? So good question. All right, the other one is, we'll do this one next. What is ML batch execution API doing? That's a good question. So the machine learning REST API has a function right now where you can do calls, like REST calls, and say, hey, I have this blob store, or I have the storage of a bunch of data. Let's say it's customer data. You've got blob storage full of customer data, and you send a call to machine learning and you say, hey, I need you to process this blob of information and run it through your machine learning model, and then output the results to some separate blob, right? Maybe it's a CSV that has all those customers and then a score of how likely they are to become an annual subscriber or something, right? So what the machine learning batch execution API does is it will let you say, point to the blob, tell machine learning, here's the blob I want you to do the batch execution on, here's where I want you to put the outputs. Then it will process that machine learning model and wait for it to finish, and then it will give you the outputs of saying, hey, here's the results. So you can use that machine learning batch execution API to start those batch executions. In theory, you could also have earlier steps in your logic app to get that data into blob in the first place, pass a reference to that blob, machine learning will process the blob, and then it will do the outputs. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, it's all it's doing is orchestrating the APIs that are already with machine learning. Like this is a really common scenario with machine learning. And if you look at their API reference, it's like 4 or 5 REST calls that you normally have to do. And this through Logic Apps lets you just do that all automatically, right? You can kind of just have it done for you. So good question. And then this one, I will let Kevin or John answer this one, which is how long will premium version be in preview mode?
Premium version of Logic Apps?
I'm guessing the premium SKU, because right now if you go to like pricing, it says premiums in preview.
Oh, we just released something that said it was.
Oh, I don't know.
It should be out of preview soon.
The premium SKU of the app service plan.
App service plans, yes.
Okay, soon. And then if you're talking about preview of Logic Apps, which seems to get asked every webcast, and the answer is probably the same, which is we're working towards GA.
Yes.
And so thank you. Continue to give us your feedback. We'll continue to release the features needed to get to GA, and we will get there. Okay. Awesome. So that's all the questions. I just checked, and there's nothing else on Twitter. But feel free, if you're watching this recording, you can continue to reach out to us on the forums, on Twitter. We'll continue to respond. I'll probably actually still get these results. I'll just keep this Logic app running for the next day or so to keep up to date on anything that you might have questions on. Again, check out that user voice, send in your features. We do check that. I honestly have that bookmark. I open it at least once a day to see what the vote changes are and what new suggestions there are. So we really do value that and your feedback and your participation. So thank you so much. Yeah. Great. Okay, thanks everyone. Yeah, happy Halloween. And as we will be doing another one of these because of the holidays in November, the next webcast might be that first Thursday in December. So there will be one in the next 4 weeks, another webcast, but just because it's Thanksgiving in the United States and a lot of people are going on holiday, including myself, just keep an eye out. Subscribe to this channel. You should get notifications when we do another one, or on Twitter. We always announce it multiple times. So we hope you join our next webcast in the coming month. So thanks so much.